Sarah, may I ask, why is your smoke detector just chilling over here on your TV stand?
So I don't think the smoke detectors ever worked. We have one hanging right there. And a couple weeks after moving into this apartment, I sort of realized, like, you know how the smoke detectors like will blink? They'll blink like a light.
I think they're only supposed to blink though when they're running out of battery.
Oh.
But I could absolutely be wrong.
So, well, here's the thing, is that one was shadily hung up like right above me. You guys, you can't see it, but there's
This test weekly. Who the fuck is going to do that?
right? But also it was hung really shadily, like literally above the mantle of this little walkway in my apartment. And like, we were like, that is such a weird place. Like, wouldn't you just put it like on the ceiling? You know, like a lot of times they're on the ceiling. It was like weirdly hung on the mantle. And then one day I put the vacuum up to this wall. Like I just like put it up, like not even hard, and it falls.
Yeah, it is secured with command strips.
Yeah, so it's been sitting on our
I mean, I guess if it
since.
should work on the ceiling, it should work on the floor, right? I think the only thing that I'd maybe worried about is carbon monoxide.
Yeah.
I just punched a lamp, if anyone's wondering listening to audio. Carbon monoxide, I think, rises, though. So you're supposed to detect it when it first reaches the ceiling.
Yeah.
And smoke also rises. I think that's the reason it's on ceiling. Also, so it's just out of the fucking way. But, you know, I trust you that if your house is burning down, you leave.
I know. Well, we had a fire here once, like, or
what?
Like, not in the apartment.
Oh, okay.
We had a weird fire situation in the building. We were sleeping, and I thought it was like a dream at first, and all of a sudden, like, I hear the crash of glass, and I thought like somebody was robbing us. I was like, here I go, like, this is my worst fear come to life. And then the fire department comes and starts like banging on people's doors. They actually broke into the people next door's place because they weren't there, and they couldn't figure out where this fire was coming from. And like, it was a very interesting moment in my life because I did learn that in this fight or flight situation, like, we were good. Like, I was like, Liz, grab your passport.
Oh, I freeze.
I was grab the passport because like if this shit is going down, like, you need your passport. Like,
fair.
We like packed bags, like we were so ready to go, just in case. Not that we wanted to go, not that we wanted a fire or anything, but yeah. And then after that, I was like, do our fire alarms work? I don't know. I'm going home this weekend. I think I'm gonna go to Home Goods, not Home Goods.
Yes, Home Goods. You know where you buy fire departments.
Fire alarms.
Fire alarms. I don't think that's smoke detectors.
Smoke detectors. That's it.
Guys,
I'm going to
we're
go
smart.
to Home Depot and get new ones because I didn't put it back up because I was like, that one's always shaded me out. So like, I need to do it with my own like two hands, the buying of it. And like, they're not like super duper expensive or anything. So like, I think they're $20. Like,
when I lived in my old apartment, one night it started doing like the blinking thing that it's out of battery late in the evening, and I was like, okay, it just started blinking, should be fine till tomorrow morning. Nope. About an hour later, like as I'm trying to go to sleep, starts beeping very fucking loudly. There's no way to just get it to be like, hey, snooze this, give me a little bit longer, I'll deal with this in the morning.
Right.
So it's like midnight. I ended up, I think, like Uber delivering some batteries because I was like, this is gonna fucking drive me insane. I tried taking it apart. I was like screaming at it. It really broke me.
I hate that. I don't
actually know where my smoke detector is in my current apartment.
Is it not called a fire alarm? Is like fire alarm not acceptable too?
This is a smoke detector. I'd say a fire alarm is more like in a dorm.
Yes.
Like the reason I know I freeze, or I think in certain situations I freeze, is because the fire alarm that we had that would go off in my freshman dorm in high school was so paralyzingly loud.
Yeah.
That like truly it was so overwhelming that it just like I couldn't move. Like my roommate literally because we also did it summer, literally had to like escort me out of my room because it was so loud that I literally like ended up on the floor like curled up. It was just so overwhelmingly loud.
Oh my gosh.
It was much less intense at the other dorm I lived in, but I would say the other dorm that I lived in, my junior or senior year, we kept failing our tests because basically you would have to do these like fire drills, and it would be based on how long the fire department estimated that the building would burn down, how quickly. And it was like an old New England house. So they like rated it of like 90 seconds essentially that you would need to be out of there. And so we kept failing it because of course they would do these at like 4 or 5 in the morning. So we would like have to wake up, and like I was on the 3rd floor and we had dorm parents live on the 4th floor. I lived in the middle of the 3rd floor. we usually weren't getting out of there in 90 seconds. So we kept having to do them. And I think I even mentioned this once to the dean of students that like, I don't think we actually passed. I think just we, for multiple weeks in a row, like, because the dean of student would also have to be there. All of our dorm parents and their kids would be hauled out of their bed at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. And we were having a miserable time. The fire department was having a miserable time. And I think they just gave up.
Yeah.
And they were like, if y'all fuckers die, that's your problem.
Literal torture. Like,
and then you'd have to do the school day.
Right. Like,
how mean?
Excuse me. And it's like, I remember in college they did this stuff too. And I will never forget our fire alarm in Sloan. That was the building I lived in freshman year, went off like super early in the morning. And like everyone was just so disheveled.
Oh yeah.
And you're just like,
I had one go off freshman year when I was in the shower and I was like, fuck this shit.
Yeah. There was definitely.
I also was like, this is a drill. I'm not rushing. I was like, fuck this shit.
This is a drill.
If I burn, I burn.
I'll remain here.
Yeah. I say as our college, I think, burned down twice. Like, our college mascot was the Phoenix because the school burned down a couple times.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Wait, I never
Did you
knew
not
this.
know that?
I knew it burnt down, but I didn't know like our like.
That's why we're the Phoenix. I mean, because they had to change it from the Fighting Christian. Look up Fighting Christian Elon. Horrifying mascot. Absolutely horrifying.
We are the Fighting Christians.
But yeah, so they had to change it obviously because they were no longer a Christian college university.
Yeah.
But they changed it to Phoenix because they kept fucking burning down, which you think they would take as a sign, but I guess not.
Damn. I actually have a clueless moment this week. Clueless moment of the week.
Yes.
Where is it appropriate and not appropriate to wear pimple patches? Because I feel like in our society today, like you will see somebody wearing pimple patches like anywhere. Like I got on the train yesterday and a girlie had a cute little star right there.
I think people our age don't really give a shit.
No, I don't either. So sometimes I have a brand that are very like you couldn't even tell it was a pimple patch. Like you had to really like look up close on the skin. Like pretty much looks, you know, sort of like a Band-Aid for a pimple, but even more like your like skin color. But then I have the ones that you actually gave me with the smiley faces on it. And those ones are so cute. And yesterday I did a work meeting with the pimple patches on. Like 3 of them.
I think in a lot of situations, work can be taken a little less seriously and people can chill out. If we're doctors and we're saving lives, yeah, I get it. If we're doing really important shit, yeah, I get it. But like most jobs that most people are working, like as much as I can recognize that it's very high stress and like stressful for them and feels very important. Like Lululemon, they are selling leggings, not solving world hunger or saving lives. Like,
literally.
I think people can chill out a little bit.
Like I am making TikTok
I say
videos.
as I've not worked in corporate America at all, so take that with 400 grains of
No,
salt.
I think you're right. After my year of working in corporate America, because you know what I was thinking about this today? I was like, is it worse to work in corporate America or audition to be like on Broadway like consistently? I was like, honestly, which one is worse? Because I have had moments.
I think there's worse or better. They're just incredibly different.
Oh my God, they're incredibly different. But like, honestly, they both they both suck. Okay. I was like, and then you know what the conclusion I drew to was I just don't want to work.
Yeah, no one does.
Like literally, I was like, because I was trying to think about it. I was like, honestly, which one is worse? But you're right. I think they're worse in their own different ways. I think with corporate America, I'm able to separate myself a little bit. It's like kind of like you said about Lululemon. I'm like, I'm just making silly little TikTok videos for a silly little fashion brand.
It's fine.
Not that silly. It's pretty big. But like still, like I think like there's this level of like, it's not my worth on the line here.
Yes. And I do think like that it's really ingrained, I think, into like our society and like corporations of like everything being so high stakes and so important. And it's like, I think everyone needs to chill out about 400 degrees. People's mental health should not be destroyed over trying to sell more stretchy pants.
No, literally. Liz and I were having a talk about this before you got here. And we have talks about this often because I think like as a 20-something living in New York, it can be really frustrating working like in corporate America because
particularly while like the world is burning, there is a full genocide happening, and that's just like starter level, not even mentioning climate change or like any of the other absolute fucked up shit happening in the world.
Right. Like that's like not even on like in like the stratosphere of like where like right. So that's baseline, right? And then it's like I think what I thought going into like corporate America was going to be like was like, oh, like I am going to be making a good salary. Like I was like, one of the reasons why I was like, oh, I kind of want to stray away from theater was because I was like, I want to like make okay money. Like I don't want to live. I just don't think the starving artist lifestyle was for me.
Yeah.
I'm a starving corporate America 20 something. Like literally. And it's just like it's hard because
capitalism fucking destroys everything. I mean,
Yeah.
profits have to keep going up every year, and the only way that can work is by making the quality less, trying to get more bang from your buck out of your employees.
literally.
It's capitalism's bad.
So the answer to all of this
Stock
is
buybacks fucking bad.
the answer to all of this is wear your pimple patches in your meetings, because at the end of the day, like really it doesn't matter.
Or don't if you'll get in trouble.
Right. Don't if you get in trouble.
Don't
But like
if that'll get you in trouble.
I've done it multiple times. I haven't gotten in trouble.
I'm just saying I think you should be allowed to.
Yeah. I feel like, again, if we're doing all this work, like might as well have a fun little pimple patch on your face to make it just like a little bit more bearable.
I was actually surprised. I've had a lot of coworkers at like my retail store wear pimple patches to work, which I was honestly always kind of surprised by.
Okay.
And it probably isn't something I would do. I say incredibly hypocritically.
No, I had that experience too. I went to the mall with my dad like around Christmas time, and we went into a store to buy my mom something, and one of the employees was wearing a pimple patch. And I was sort of like, like, is this the right environment to wear a pimple patch?
But it's also like, who cares?
Right. But at the same, and then I caught myself.
That's something I've been stewing on a lot right now, is that like, hey, your first thought doesn't have to be who you are. Of like, oftentimes, like, I feel myself like falling for fucking propaganda or the things that have been like so ingrained into us of like the like pull yourself up by your bootstraps fucking thought process of America. And I'll like catch myself think that, and then I'll be like, I'll try and be like, hey, having that be your first thought doesn't make you a horrible person. And B, that doesn't have to be who you are. You can choose that that's not actually what you believe. And even if that's like your gut reaction or instinct, like it is hard to unlearn what you've been taught your entire life.
Totally. I feel like that I've similarly been working on that, especially when it comes to work, because I feel like over the winter, I was putting so much pressure on myself, similarly to what I had done with theater. And then I saw a couple of like really kind of life-changing TikToks, and like, so really, am I just making silly little videos? Because this was life-changing for me.
Okay.
And it was like, they were like, and this is very extreme, everyone. It was like saying, if you die today, your company will replace you in the next 30 days. And then I also
they do not give a shit about you.
Right. And then I saw one again recently that was like, your minimum, your bare minimum is most employees' like best day. And it really got me thinking like, holy shit, like they would just replace me, or like, why am I putting so much fucking pressure on myself? And so I feel like over the last couple months, as I've taken some of that pressure off, like things have gotten lighter again. And I'm just like, and I think that's the good thing about working in corporate America versus the musical theater, like back to that conversation, is that I think because musical theater is so self-driven and self-motivated, you can put, and like like you are the instrument, you can put endless amounts.
You get to choose, how much of yourself you put in, which like can really drive you to the bone, or you can control how much you push.
Exactly. So I feel like with my current job, like I'm able to take some of the stress off versus like with the podcast, like my own content, or like if I was auditioning for musical theater, I'd put so much pressure on because it was me, like there's not this degree of separation.
Yeah. I think that's something really lovely that I found is like I've gotten back into auditioning in a way of like I'm really enjoying it. Like I tried to get back in, like I feel like 4 to 6 months ago, and I did do some auditions and whatnot, but like I really wasn't enjoying it, and I was very much forcing myself to be there, and like didn't want to do it. And I'm having a great time. I go to the auditions that I can. If I like can't make one, or like it just doesn't work, that is how it's gonna be.
Period.
But I've found myself like really enjoying it again, which has been really delightful.
How does it feel to like be back in the room?
Weird. And I think what is like kind of nice that like feels really different than like college or high school is like when you audition for like the school show or whatever, like you kind of like you're one of like what 40 people that there's, it's not 40 is an incredibly off number, like 60 to 80 people that they're seeing. Like there is an expectation of you've got a pretty decent chance of getting called for something. Whereas like right now it's just like, hey, I go into my room, I sing my ditty, probably nothing's gonna happen. And I know that like anything that does happen, cool, fun surprise. And that technically has always been true, but I think that's only something that I'm really in a place to like not have that affect me and not sort of be still stuck in that mindset of like, oh, every audition that I don't hear something back from is a failure and is like showing on me. And my first audition was bad. I did a bad job. The first one that I did back, it went poorly, fucked up the intro, didn't sound good, didn't act at all. But I've been really enjoying it and like in a way that's like, oh, okay. I am glad that I took the break that I did. Like, this is what I used to. It makes me excited again.
Right, like what you loved. Yeah, I mean, I'm totally pro break because I do think it gives you a chance to like refuel that fire or that passion.
But on the flip side, like, do I feel a little awkward that like I'm non-ec and I'm with mostly people who like graduated years behind me, who are just graduating or haven't graduated yet, and that like a lot of my auditioning friends are equity, and that like the last show I did was in 2020. It is 2024. That's been a while. But I also like I feel really comfortable and confident in who I am, and we'll see if it fucking pans out. Maybe not. But yeah.
Period.
Also, this is incredibly cutting back on our conversation, but you mentioning passports. Wanna know the most suspicious thing my dad does?
What?
Carries his passport with him everywhere. Like, it is always in his backpack. It is with him at all times, which like, what are you running from, Jeffrey? And B, you're ready to ditch us, I guess, because none of the rest of us have passports. If something happens and you need a fucking yeet, you're ditching us, I guess. All of us find that so suspicious. And he's never really explained it. And we bring it up to him and we're like, that's fucking weird. Like, what are you running from, Jeffrey? And he just kind of like mumbles and walks away.
Yeah, that's interesting because like I feel like my parents, like the number one thing is like don't carry around your passport because you don't want to lose it.
Yeah, it's with him. I mean, please no one hunt my dad down and steal his passport.
He is ready to flee.
But yeah, I'm like, what are you running from, Jeffrey? Like, what the fuck?
That's so fucking funny. Wait, so when you texted me yesterday, so Audrey texted me about like a DM we had received, and I gave you a very cranky answer, and I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay.
I have been so cranky this week.
That's okay.
I know, but like I have been noticing, and honestly, Liz pointed it out to me. It's from the hours of like 4 and 5 p.m. to like around 7 p.m. I am angry and cranky and irritable.
You're tired.
Yeah. Like I just get so
You're
cranky.
probably a little hangry as well.
Yes. Olivia made me chicken cutlet yesterday and like I was so angry. Like I was like, or just like so irritable. Like they came in and I was like being weird and being like, I'm so angry. Like I'm like, you know, when you're trying to like express your feelings, but like don't like actually want to be like, you know. And then they made me Parmesan chicken cutlet.
Slay.
It's such a good recipe. I'll put it on the CFC page. It's my mom's like in a book, not her actual recipe, in a cookbook. And Olivia's perfected it. Like I have gotten them to perfection. And as soon as I had a bite of that chicken cutlet, everything was better.
Something that I think I saw on Tumblr probably like a decade ago, and I've now seen various iterations of it come up again, is like they have them specifically targeted to other ones, but generally, like if I'm feeling a big emotion, whether that's like anger, sadness, whatever, it's like, okay, pause for a second before reacting. Maybe try eating, taking a nap, taking a shower, or like going on a walk, and maybe some combination of all four of those. And a lot of the time that fixes it.
No, literally, like a same before you got here today, I was feeling that like surge of crankiness again. I'm like, what is this? Like it feels uncontrollable. And then I went and took a shower. And I was like, okay, like I'm better now.
Yeah.
Like it's so weird. I was saying it to Olivia. I was like, yeah, I was so cranky. And like, and also we have an address that I'm like also wearing pajamas. Like, hey, everyone.
I love it. I borrowed a pair of Sarah's shorts.
Yeah.
I've also learned.
You like to have your feet extended. I get that. I know we don't have like the thing is like my couch is like facing this way, but I feel like the better like background is this one. So
I can't sit with my feet on the ground. I know it's a real joke cliche, but I really can't sit normal.
Yeah, I feel you. It can be like weird. I like to have like something, but I also like feel like I look weird when I'm like
oh yeah, whenever I go back and watch this, I'm like, why do my legs look so strange? But I'm focused on the present, and my knees are achy if I sit in one way for too long.
Right, because you worked all day. We're recording a little bit later.
We are.
CFC After Dark. Do you have any Clueless moments?
I definitely did, and I've definitely lost it. Oh, I've got a weird little freaky oven, and I don't quite get it, and it confuses me. And it's a weird little freaky oven.
Is it a gas?
No, it's not the stovetop that's weird. It's that, like, you know how normally when you turn on an oven.
Do you want to check if that thing's? Is it me? Oh, there it goes.
You know how normally you turn on an oven and you set it to a temperature and that's how you turn it on?
Yeah.
You like set it like on the knob that you can set temperature on. There is an off setting, but just turning it off the off setting and setting it to a temperature doesn't turn it on. There are these other other knobs you turn that like one references like top, bottom, and then one is just a light symbol. And I don't truly know what they mean. I don't know if it means it only heats like the top of the, I don't understand.
Is it a gas stove?
No, it's electric.
It's like
on
electric.
top.
Okay.
But it's the oven part that's weird. Because the first time I tried to turn it on, I had turned it on, and then nope, it wasn't on. I don't understand the symbols. I'm very confused by it. But I'll figure it out. But yeah, if you have a weird little freaky mini oven, those fuckers weird.
I feel like all ovens are weird. I feel like everybody's oven, it's like, oh, they'll be like, oh, it gets hot really fast, or it gets there's always like finicky
I'm
things.
just not even sure how to turn this. I mean,
Yeah.
I figured it out, but I'm not confident in it being on. Like I had a moment today of like, I was like, is this on? Because it wasn't set to off, but it wasn't on. I don't understand.
Oh wait, speaking of your finicky oven, how has it been living in your new apartment?
It's good. I definitely like. So I need to get like a little kitchen island thing because I really have no counter space, which makes like there is like one little square foot, maybe a square foot is actually probably larger than it is, where like you can like prep and chop things.
Yeah.
Which like I need more fucking space than that.
Sure.
And I'm definitely still sort of finding my rhythm. I'm really ready to have everything sort of settled and in. But I'm just like, so I'd been looking on Facebook Marketplace for different little kitchen islands, and then I kept stumbling across one that like was the right dimensions and one that I wanted, and then I realized that it was like someone's semi drop shipping, I think, and they were charging more than it is online, so I just ordered it. It's not gonna arrive for a little bit longer, which is I'm ready for it to be there because it's also expanding. Like I have a bunch of storage in it, and so I have really limited kitchen storage, but I really do like it. I keep going in waves where I'll like move stuff from my old place, unpack it, and then like get more stuff. So it just keeps like alternating between like being a disaster and whatnot. And I'm ready for it to like not be a disaster. Like it feels overwhelming. And I had not been bringing my vacuum up because I was like, I'm going to need my vacuum out of my old place to do a final clean out before I move. But it's just like too much shit has been falling on the ground. And I hate having the ground be fucking dirty. And my sister and my mom are staying with me next week. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to bring the vacuum back down when I move everything. I think I should be done soon. But yeah, I really love my new place.
Good.
I'm just looking forward to being settled.
Yeah, I get that. I feel like that's the hardest part about moving. It's like it's not just a day and then it feels like home.
And it's not just like in college where you kind of like start from scratch and then you just buy a bunch of shit and do it, where it's like unpacking all of your old shit and figuring out how it fits in here now. But I really do love my new place. And again, I've been waking up really early. I mean, I've just been skewing a little bit later just because things have kept me up later in the evening. But I've been waking up at like 6 a.m. and I really enjoy that. And I like really enjoy having my mornings. But yeah, my bedroom isn't like literally just clothes fucking everywhere. Like literally everywhere. They're like in 3 separate piles, but piles is pretty fucking loose. And then I just have like trash bags full of my stuff. So I don't know how I'm getting all of this sorted before my sister and my mom come and stay with me, but
that's a problem for another time.
Yeah,
I move. The whole moving process is just like a lot. So I feel for you because I feel like actually false. When I moved here, it came a little bit easier because I was like 100% work from home at that point. So it was easier for me to like, tidy things up during the day and like kind of get to like where I needed to be quicker.
I think getting back into auditioning and moving at the same time was kind of a bold choice, which was one that I didn't plan on doing. I planned on waiting till the end of this month to start back auditioning. And I'm glad that I didn't. I think that like sort of having the momentum and just making the big change at once is easier in certain ways, but it is like kind of making it so like I'm still kind of again figuring out how to like juggle things. And like that like I don't have the energy I used to, and like my body and my mind and my everything are different than they were 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely still finding my rhythm, and yeah, I can't decide if I want my mom and sister to help me with some organizing of stuff or if I don't want them to. I would say it just kind of feels overwhelming, and I keep kind of doing that thing where I freeze up, and I'm trying to do a better job of breaking it down into chunks, because like once I start, I can usually get going and get a decent amount done, but like right now it just feels so messy and so much that I just like literally sit there and I just stare at shit, and I'm like, oh God, I need to cook and make myself food because I'm starving, but I can't cook because the kitchen's a mess because I need to unpack X, Y, and Z, but I can't unpack X, Y, and Z because I'm too fucking hungry. And then it just like is in this endless circle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of your parents coming, we're going to do a little post-grad survival guide parent edition.
Family as underscore.
Yeah.
Subtitle.
Yeah. Because it's a hard shift, the post-grad, like, with parents and family,
which like has been a common theme that I've sort of heard among a lot of my friends. I feel like particularly female friends, especially with moms. I mean, very much other relationships also
Sure.
as well, but I do feel like, and maybe this is a little bit of me projecting of like my own, but like my mom and I are like really close.
Yeah.
And like always have been. And I think there is like a weird transition of like, becoming less dependent on them, but also like kind of stepping into your own choices of like, I even with like a lot of things, like I kind of didn't realize, or just I forgot, I don't know what's the right word, that like, hey, if my mom says I shouldn't do something, that I can still choose to do it.
Yeah.
Of like, even simple of like, I probably actually am not painting my cabinets anymore because I'm actually just choosing to take them fucking off. Because it's so thin, my kitchen is so thin that like not having the cabinet door to open is just so much easier. I've taken them off the fucking hinges.
Oh yeah, that's such a great idea, because you could also make it like super cool.
I probably won't.
Okay, I was just saying.
That like if my mom says no, you shouldn't do something, that I still can. And
Yeah.
I do feel like there's this like weird of like, in college you very much are still a fake adult, and that like as you more and more become an adult, you start making decisions that they're not going to necessarily agree with.
Yeah.
And like not in any horrible big ways, but I think like always in different ways, but I've heard this a lot from like other friends who are like very close with their moms. Of like there is sort of this awkward transition of going between like I being like the kid who like would tell my mom all the gossip at college and everything, to like being somewhat of an adult who is like making decisions or like doing things sometimes that I don't fucking want to tell my mom about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting. So my mom's a therapist, so I feel like she has a really good grasp on boundaries. I feel like she always has. So I feel like the hardest part that I've had with my parents, and luckily I feel like I've been able to prove my point, is honestly when I moved. I feel like things were tough, and things were not tough, but they, of course, like you have, when you leave college, and especially when you move back into your parents' house specifically, right? You went from having all of this like freedom in your college life, being a pretend adult, like whatever. And then you move back into your parents' house and suddenly you're a kid again. And not that my parents treated me like a kid. Like, again, like I felt like they were really good at letting me be an adult. Like they didn't really question me like going out or if I slept in late or things like that. But like, you know, and I know this is so stupid, but in my brain, like after 100 times of hearing like do the dishes, you're annoyed because as an adult, when you were living in college, you got to choose like, oh, I want to do the dishes now, or this is how I want to do it. And I feel like that was the hard thing for me with living at home, was like were processes or things that like I wanted to do the way I wanted to do it as an adult, but like you're living in your parents' house, so you have to like appease them and do it the way they want.
Yes.
Which has been hard. But then when I moved out, I feel like it was hard for me to get them to understand that my starting salary was not getting me anywhere in New York City.
Yeah.
And like I was like having to, it took like 2 months, and like I told my mom, I was like, look at my bank account. The only money I have spent is on my rent, on like, you know, other bills like subscriptions, like electricity, things like that, and groceries. And like I can't live like this. Like I rather like just like stop all this and go live back at home, because what's the point of living in the city if I can't even like enjoy it because I'm so stressed out by money. So, and like again, privilege comes into play here, because I never had to be financially independent up until this point, or wasn't like forced to do it. So it was this like really big shift and change, and all that change I think at once was like really hard for me. But yeah, it was hard to get my parents to understand like times aren't like New York isn't the New York you had, you know, like New York now, like if you want to go anywhere, like you're probably spending $50 at least, you know,
or even like that, like applying to jobs is really differently of like, I think my mom like doesn't sometimes believe that I'm like, I am applying to jobs because like, I'm not like banging on doors or whatnot. But it's like, hey, no, I applied to like 30 jobs and I just heard nothing from any of them. Like,
yeah. That's something interesting about like the TikTok culture of it all, is that like I feel like a lot of people talk about how hard the job market is right now and how hard getting a job is, and they're applying to like hundreds of jobs and hearing nothing back. So I feel privileged to have a job and everything. But yeah, it's an interesting shift.
I'd say like something that I think I've struggled with, and this is not something everyone's going to struggle with. Again, I grew up with a huge amount of privilege and a huge amount of access and opportunity. And that's not how either of my parents grew up. My mom's dad died when she was pretty young.
Yeah.
And they had to be like, she was able to go to whatever college she wanted, but that was due to my grandmother being incredibly frugal and careful while they grew up. And my dad was the oldest of 5 siblings who I don't think were ever in a good financial place.
Yeah.
Whose parents were not great parents. And I think due to like me having so much resource and access and support and incredible opportunities, I think they sort of expected me to be further along with where I am. And it's like, hey, I'm also still 25 and I'm going to make many, many mistakes.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do things you don't agree with. Like my family very much wants me to like sort of shift my career and focus more on like a traditional job. And I very much understand why they want me to do that. I think it's very fair. And I think part of it is on me of I didn't do the best job of when struggling with depression of really letting them in or ever letting them know how bad it was. And so I'm slightly putting words in their mouth, and by slightly I mean incredibly, because this is not really a conversation we've had. But there is a part of me that's like, oh, I don't think particularly some of them really think that I was very depressed or that was something, particularly because I think I was pretty decent at keeping it together for a short amount of time.
Sure.
Which, like, I only really ever saw my family for a short amount of times, or when I was with them for like maximum week. To be honest, by the end of that week, it would get really hard for me if I'd have to be sneaking off a lot to go like cry and melt down by myself. And so I feel like there is a certain point to which they don't believe it because I didn't let them in. And so they didn't really get to see it. And so I do feel like, particularly from like not as immediate family members, there is sort of this perception that I've just been kind of fucking around for 3 years. And I understand why that is the perception. And I understand why they feel that way, but there is like a little bit of like, I a little bit feel like a laughing stock in like a way that I think feels really difficult, because like I, throughout my entire life, have felt behind, just like due to being the last 6 siblings. Like I so badly just wanted to catch up to them, which is physically impossible. That's not how age and the passage of time works. And so there's this part of me that has always felt behind, and no matter what is gonna feel fucking behind. I mean, my sister is in a couple years gonna turn 50. She has 2 kids and like a husband. Like I'm never going to catch up to her. And so I feel like I'm not where they would all like me to be. And so they think that I should pivot. And I sort of feel like, hey, I'm finally in a place of doing better. I want to do the thing that I've always wanted to do. And I understand from how your point of view, like I've just been sort of fucking around and not really focused on anything. And so I very much understand where they're coming from. But like understanding where people are coming from doesn't necessarily make it not hurt.
Yeah.
Of like, I feel like a little bit of a joke to my family, and like not in a way where they're doing anything mean or malicious. But in a way of like, my family matters a lot to me and I am really close with them. Like I have complicated relationships with them. I mean, like, I went to boarding school, so like I very much like feel like that sense of like your family not quite realizing that you've grown up is a little exacerbated. Of like, I left home at 13 or 14 years old.
Yeah.
And I was like home for summers, but I usually be doing a summer program where I was gone for at least like a couple of weeks or a month or whatever. And I feel like, again, partially due to like me not necessarily doing the best at letting them into my life, but I feel like there's a slight disconnect.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe, I think, kind of like what happens after college, because as my mother would say, the word individuate, like since we're growing up, like I think it's only natural that a lot of like kids like want to kind of, yeah, individuate, figure out who they are as an individual outside of their home. And I think some parents can really struggle with that and struggle like letting go. Or like there's the, okay, my kid is not a kid anymore. They get to make their own decisions, but I don't necessarily agree with that decision. Like, how do we handle that?
It's hard for me that like I feel like I'm letting them down and disappointing them. And I don't want to do that. That feels absolutely fucking horrible. But I also am like, I don't think the right call is to cave to what they want to like escape that feeling, because that long term is gonna feel worse.
Right. Like when I decided to take a break from theater, like I felt energy both from my parents. Like I don't think they ever verbally said it to me, but I definitely felt this energy of like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, you've been doing this for your whole life. This is all you've ever wanted, and now you're gonna like give up. And I felt judged a little bit at first. And it was when my mom came on the podcast, I think, she had like talked about, or even maybe it wasn't. I had a conversation with my mom, and, you know, she was telling me how like she is like so proud of me because she was like, you decided to like pivot, and like she was like, I could have never done something like that. Like you just decided to like pivot and turn it around, and like you've done all this for yourself. Literally, I was sitting on this couch the other week. I was texting my parents like, yeah, it's my year anniversary at this corporate job. Like blah blah blah. Like not. Oh no, I shouldn't downplay it. I've made great strides at this job. Whether I want this job forever or not, the answer is not. Like I like have made such amazing strides, and I've learned so much. And so I was telling my parents, and my dad like sent this message, and he was like, you know, I know whatever version of success that you create for yourself, like you're gonna do amazing. Like you make me so proud. And I started hysterically crying because I think, especially as like the first child for me, and the child that grew up in the like type A people pleaser, perfectionist, and then was kind of like dethroned when I like fell into this depressive episode, because it was so like 180 from like who I was. Like it was just like, I'm making my parents proud. And that's another whole complicated thing, because it's like, and I think I mentioned this to you a couple weeks ago, it's like, yeah, you could have like the greatest job on paper. So, right, it sounds good telling people like, oh, I do this amazing job at this company, but you could be like, yeah, depressed, really sad, a fucking terrible human. Like, you know,
Something I think about a lot of times is like my parents at dinner parties, when like they all go around and everyone's sharing like what their kids are doing, of like, oh God, what do people fucking say about me? And like, not even what do my parents say. I mean, I guess part of it is like, they would say she fucking works in retail, which is like, doesn't feel impressive, and isn't fucking impressive. And there's a part of me that like fucking hates the idea of that conversation.
I get that, because I feel like before I got this like job, I was the same way. And so now like I don't have to like explain like, oh yeah, like I'm just doing like babysitting part-time, and then I do this. It's like, oh, I can just say this, which feels nice in the moment, but like you're so much more than your job. Like I hate how that becomes the the explainer of your success is like, I have this job, because you're so much more than that, right? But like I'm like hypocritical in a way, because I fall at this too. Like I love telling people like my cool ass job, but then I secretly know like that I struggle, and that like there's a part of me that's like, should I just like be a barista and try like giving all my creative energy to our podcast and my own content? It's this back and forth. And I do think a part of me is like lately has been leaning towards this like should I work the quote unquote survival job, the retail job, whatever, the service job, so that I can give all my creative energy to the things that are like really, important to me, or should I not? It's really hard.
I mean, it's something that has helped me with like that imaginary conversation is like, hey, I'm actually back auditioning, and like as much as like this isn't, my parents probably would be saying this of like when you go home and like you see that extended family member and they ask what you're up to, and like people in the past 3 years they would kind of be like, oh, what are you doing, like are you auditioning, and I would be like, kind of.
Yeah.
I'm like, I am, and I'm happy with the choices that I'm making.
Yeah.
And I do feel like I have a conversation coming in the next couple of months with my parents. And I mean, maybe my mom will listen to it and hear it here. I was planning on having this conversation with her in a couple of weeks when I go home for the 4th of July, but maybe she'll hear this podcast episode and we'll still have to have it, but it'll be weirder because she's gotten in advance on it. So hi, Mom, if you're listening.
I'm like, you're practicing with the audience.
I am. Of being like, hey, I know you guys really want me to shift focus with my career. And there definitely is a degree of like, if I keep doing this for a while and don't make progress, I will. And like, I understand how from your point of view, I've had 3 years to do this and you guys would like me to make progress somewhere else. I sort of, like I said earlier, like I finally feel in a place that I can do this. And this is the thing I've always wanted to do. And now that I'm feeling better, I still want to do it. And I have to try it because I won't be happy with myself in any other way. And like, absolutely, I reserve the right to in 6 months be like, actually, fuck this. I'm going to go get a job.
Yeah, sure.
And I think it's complicated also because, like, again, incredibly privileged that I've had a lot of support of, like, I am still on my parents' health insurance and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's a part of me that, like, feels like it is unfair and that I kind of need to bend to what is their preference. And so I'm trying to kind of find that balance, and it is going to involve some probably not super fun conversations.
Sure. Yeah, it isn't super fun. Like, yeah, I can't really remember the conversation where I told my parents that I was going to take like this indefinite break from theater. I think my dad took it harder. I recently had a conversation with my mom about it, and she was like, no, like, because I asked her, like, I was like, yeah, like, I think like maybe you guys like hold some like weird feelings about me changing my career. And she's like, no, like, if you're happy, like, whatever. I think my dad holds on to it a little bit more. And it comes from this place of like, he does believe in me. He does believe in my talent. And I do to a certain extent too. Yeah. I mean, I'm not even going to bark down the whole theater is complicated, like tree, because it's just a whole big conversation. But yeah, it can feel weird, but yeah, I think like you should make that decision. And like, yeah, they probably aren't going to like it, but like, yeah, you're in charge of your life now,
yeah,
right?
Like, you might not agree with it. You might not support it. You might not think it's the right call. Unfortunately for you, it's the call that I am making. And
right.
Maybe someday I will think that there will have been a better call and I will agree with your point of view. But
for now, yeah.
Hindsight's 2020, and I can't operate based off what might be and what would make them happy. I have to try and think about like my own future and what the choices I can live with. And I am, again, so incredibly privileged that this is something that I can continue pursuing.
Yeah. And if you think about it, like, okay, yes, we graduated 3 years ago, but like think about that in like the whole span of your life, right? I think that's another like perspective shift I've been trying to do too, is like, I'm so fucking young. Like, I will never be this young again. Like, like I feel like now is the time to do things, right? Yes. Like my friend was like, oh, I have a month off, and my friend is working in this hostel, and like I can get free living if I work at the bar there. And I'm like, and she's like, should I do it? I'm like, yeah, you should do it. Because like as you get older, and I think this is something my parents have talked to me about, like as you get older and you decide to like maybe have a lifelong partner, maybe you decide to have kids with that lifelong partner, even if you don't, like your responsibilities just get like greater and greater and greater. So yeah, like if you have the privilege of like time and like space and energy, like why not give it to the thing that you want to do, especially now that you're feeling better. Because like, yeah, I think when you are depressed, like you can't really do the things that you want to do, even though it's in your brain. Like
some of that is on me. I honestly did a very bad job of, I really didn't let my parents know at any point of how poorly I was doing. And I was far enough away and they saw me infrequently enough that I could kind of hold it together. And
yeah.
Like, I don't think I necessarily changed that decision because like, I think it's really hard for my mom that I didn't let her in. And I understand that being painful and her being hurt by that.
Yeah.
Like even though they were like so supportive and so open and everything, like I didn't want to let them down.
Sure.
And like I felt so embarrassed and ashamed.
Mm-hmm.
And like it felt so hurtful, the idea of telling them like, hey, you've been wonderful parents. I love you so much. You've supported me endlessly. I don't want to be alive.
Yeah. No, it's really, really hard to like tell your parents when you're not doing well, especially if you've always been the opposite child. Like I know for me, I was always in the situation of like, what's it called? Like I've been doing all these great things and like whatever. And so like to them, it's like, okay, like my parents would say like, we never have to worry about Sarah and like things like that. And so when you're going to become like a big worry to them and you always have never been a worry, you've kind of gotten used to not like saying anything or expressing these things because like they're at least like their attention was elsewhere in my family. Like it is really hard to take up that space.
Yeah.
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 No, I know it's hard. It's heavy. Like I don't think you're the only person that struggles with it. I think like, you know, everybody has such different relationships with their parents. And I think that's been like something that's very interesting to me growing up, like is hearing different people's relationships with their parents because it's
or
so
with, like just their whole family.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
it's so vastly different.
my family has even shifted a lot in the last year of like, as my brother and his husband have moved up close to me of like,
Yeah.
I now like have 2 functional brothers again, which is like been incredible for me. Like there also have been like so many wonderful things about my family. Like I don't want to make it seem like
no,
it's
but
not.
I think that's family though, right? That's
Yes.
family, is that there's so many things that you love and enjoy about your family, and then there are so many things that piss you off, make you sad, hurt you. Like that is the epitome of family, I feel like.
Yes.
So yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, and I think it's growing up is hard.
Yeah. And so all I can do is like move forward, try
Yeah.
and be as open and honest as I can. And
Yeah.
I'm really going to go for it. I mean, of like my brother, the younger of my 2 brothers, he now works in video game design. He works for EA.
I should tell Steven. Steven wants to go into video game design.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm going to tell Steven. And that's called networking.
And my brother worked at a GameStop for a really fucking long time before he really made progress. And he's at a really great place with his career. He's about a decade older than me or so. I think a hair more than a decade. But he's like in a good place as a career, but there was a lot of years of not doing great. And I mean, like I very much haven't been hustling the last 3 years, but I am now. I'm in audition. I'm working as hard as I can. And I can live with the decisions I'm making right now.
Yeah.
Even if it's not what they want.
Sure. I feel like especially career-wise, like I feel like I've just seen way too many examples of like, you know, people, having to sort of like, you know, go through.
Again, coming from an astoundingly privileged point of view.
Sure. But I'm just talking more in a general sense. I think a lot of people have to go through like the hustle part of their career where it's not very glamorous or cool, or you're working as a barista because you want to write a book or like things like that. I think that's very, especially in our 20s. Like I think that's normal. And I think like we all like societally, a lot of people put a lot of like pressure on ourselves to, make it, because a lot of ways making it means more money, and more money means access to things, especially as you get older.
Yeah, and as I've gotten older and I'm like less and less on my parents' dime, like there are a lot of things that I really didn't fucking appreciate growing up. Of like,
oh no, me either.
And it forces you to realize like, do I want to spend that $20?
No, literally. Sure. Oh my gosh. There's parts of me that like used to be so mindless with like money. And I was in a Sephora the other week with Olivia because I wanted to pick up something that I do use every day. And then I saw this other product and I was like, oh, like I wanted to try this. And then I was like, it was $20 actually. I was like, do I really need it though?
But then on the flip side of like, you get to like grow up and like appreciate things. Mom, if you are listening to this, if it's before July, switch off right now. Of like, I'm like, for real, switch off. I will be incredibly annoyed if you don't. So it's my parents. I have a bunch of people coming up for the 4th.
Yeah.
And it's my parents' 30th anniversary of wedding anniversary. on July 3rd. And so
Yeah.
I texted my mom being like, are you guys doing anything? Like, just wondering for like plans. And she was like, we're just going to do something on a later date.
Okay.
Because there's going to be a bunch of people already up. Her college friends are already going to be there.
Period.
You and a couple of my other friends are already going to be there. And so I was like, okay. And then I did the math and I went, it's their 30th. I'm pretty sure.
30. That's a big number.
I'm pretty sure. There's a chance I did math wrong, but I'm pretty sure they got married at 94 and it's 2024. So
yeah.
math goes 30. And I was like, okay, I can't just let that go by the wayside. And so I'm like planning, it's still in pretty infant stages, but I'm planning like a little surprise anniversary thing for them.
Cute.
And it's been like really nice to like, I'm excited to like give something back to them. And like, I've been coordinating with her college friends and then some of our family friends and my siblings and whatnot.
That is a cool part about being an adult is like getting to give back to your parents.
Yeah, and like I'm really excited about that. I'm trying currently to figure out the menu, and like I think I'm gonna do grits because my dad always would get really excited when my aunt made grits for Easter because he's from the South. And I haven't figured out the rest of the menu. But like I'm really excited to do that for them, and that's not something I could have pulled off at 17.
Sure.
And I am very much thinking of like, what exactly balloons do you want to get? Balloons are way more expensive than you would think.
Literally everything's more expensive when you have to pay for it.
Exactly. But like I'm really excited to do that for them. And like my sister is helping out and she's gathering a bunch of like little notes from people.
Aww, that's
and
so
I'm like
cute.
I'm so excited to do that for them. And like I think it's gonna be so exciting. I've tasked her college friends with getting her out of the house.
Okay.
So that we can, like, prep everything.
Okay.
And my brother-in-law is helping cook the meat because I A, don't want to, but B, don't know how to cook meat. I cooked it once. I cooked chicken and I didn't touch it the whole time because I thought it was nasty. And I also was never confident if it was cooked. I had no idea if it was good or not. I made it for a partner for Valentine's Day. That's how you know that I really love you, is if I cook you meat for something. It could have tasted horribly. I have no idea. I had no means of, I wasn't going to taste test it. They could have lied to me. It could have been awful. No idea. So I'm letting my brother-in-law take over that. But yeah, it's an adjustment. And I think it's really not something that I think I realized how different it would be becoming an adult.
Yeah.
And having to renegotiate being somewhat level planes with each other as opposed to like this up and down.
Yeah. Not going to get into this convo because we're running out of time, but my brain has recently been going to like, oh my God, like what happens like when you become a parent, but you still have parents? Like I'm interested to see that like relationship. Exactly. Like that's crazy.
It is actually really funny because I've kind of gotten to watch it with my oldest sister.
Right. True.
And my mom, I don't know if I should say this. My mom is like, if you went to go and do that, I wouldn't let you, because like it is with my other siblings of like she's their like stepmother, stepmom. Regardless, the age difference between my oldest sister and my mom is like a bit over a decade. Like it's a very different relationship. She was like, I wouldn't let you do that if it was your kid. And I was like, okay, good to know, Mom.
That's lovely. Nothing being that's lovely. Okay, you guys. Well, we've reached the end. I'm hungry.
I'm hungry. I'm a little shaky.
Yeah, we need to wrap up.
We need to wrap this shit up.
All right. That being said, you can follow us on Instagram at Completely Fucking Clueless.
And on TikTok and YouTube at Completely FCKING Clueless. Also, we never introduced ourselves. This is the Completely Fucking Clueless podcast. My name's Audrey.
And my name is Sarah. And we both use she, her pronouns. Intro coming at the end. Love that for us.
Cold open.
Yes.
I was telling you, cold open.
We're trying to mix it up, you guys. Oh, and also quick announcement is this episode, and then we'll have one more episode, and then we're actually taking a month off.
We're taking July off.
Yes, because we deserve it.
And because, we worked all through Pride Month.
Exactly. So we need to take a break, right? Period. So just putting that for you on the horizon. But we hope you have an amazing Tuesday, an amazing week. And don't forget to be motherfucking clueless. Bye, you guys. Kisses for mommy. Mommy loves kisses.